All right, let's bring in Sami Al-Arian, who is the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs over at Istanbul's Zaim University. Joins me now on set. Sami, good to have you on set for our special coverage. All right, so here's the situation. You have more than 140 countries that are registered under the UN that already recognize Palestinian statehood out of the 193. Why is this development, what we're expecting today, Norway, Spain, and Ireland, significant, and is it different, or is it just symbolism?
Well, it's both significant and symbolic as well. But let me just take you a little bit briefly in history why this is so significant. Because when the Palestine Liberation Organization was admitted in 1974, it was admitted just as a member, as an observer, status as an organization. But after the Declaration of Independence of 1988, about 78 countries recognized it, but nothing happened until perhaps the end of the century, the beginning of this century. There was about 102 countries. And then by 2012, there are about 130 countries. And before this significant event that's taking place today, there are about 142. But 25 countries out of the 51 left were from Europe, basically from the Schengen area or from the European Union. So to have 3 of them coming today and recognizing the state of Palestine is considered significant, because when you consider 51 countries, excluding Israel, that would be 50, mostly are allied with the United States, 12 island nations, which were previously occupied by the United States, and then United States neighbors, Canada, Panama, Mexico, and then United States allies in Asia, South Korea, Japan, all these under US influence. So the countries that could actually make a significant shift and change would be countries in Europe. To have 3 of them at one time coming out and saying and defying basically American will and Israeli will should be significant.
Okay, so you have, I appreciate the evolution in terms of the increasing support for Palestinian statehood. But like you very rightfully pointed out, there are a lot of important countries, powerful countries that are outside of this group. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany. Question is 2 parts. What's going to happen with them, and how much pressure, if at all, is going to be placed on them by the actions taken by Norway, Spain, and Ireland?
There is no question that the United States will always back Israel's will and insistence of not recognizing. So that is not even a contentious issue. The United States will always pressure its allies, closest allies, but that does not necessarily mean countries in Europe. France is already on record in the last General Assembly to recognize Palestine as a state, even though, and it even within the framework of the Security Council, in the last vote, it was 12 to 2. 2 were abstentions, Switzerland and Britain, and the United States vetoed it. So France even on record to support, but France also does not want to go alone. It wants to be as part of the European Union as a whole. That's why it's not backed the current 3 countries. But I think we are on a train that has already left the station to be very difficult in the next few years for other European countries not to join.
You started off your answer by making a reference to the United States' position. The National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, came out and said that President Biden opposes unilateral announcements or actions taken by a side, and that we prefer that both sides in this conflict actually make a joint declaration or a joint movement. It just seems that the United States is not sort of putting its hand under the stone and taking any responsibility and basically passing it on to Israel.
It's always the case. I mean, the United States is always the last to come to the table. I mean, we saw this during the apartheid South African regime. It took about 12 years for people to come and sanction South Africa because of its apartheid system. The last one to join was the United States. So it took the whole world to be on one side, and the United States and Britain to be on the other side, and eventually Britain relented, and eventually the United States relented. So I think what's going to happen here is that most countries in the next few years will probably come to the recognition of Palestine. Whether the United States would actually come to the table or not is not going to make a significant difference.
To ask a group of lawyers what recognition of statehood is required by international law. I think we'll come out and say that you have to have a defined territory, and I think Pedro Sanchez sort of made a reference to that, to the 67 borders and East Jerusalem as the capital. But he also said that you have to have an effective government.
4 requirements for any state to have: territory, population, sovereignty, which Palestinians do not have, and an effective government. So you're right, effective government is one of them, and he has no choice but to choose the current government, which Israel rejects and it does not even talk to. And so far, the current government has not proven to be really representative of the Palestinians. So this is something that the Palestinians have to work on.
Okay, now that Spain is the first one out of the blocks, would you expect something similar to come out from Oslo and from Dublin later on today?
I think so. I think they are all coordinated efforts, and they didn't want to come alone. They want to come as a group, which will strengthen their hand. And the more significant point here is that they really defying the will of the United States, and that is a first from European countries. It hasn't come to pass in the past that several countries would come and say, United States, you failed, and it's time for us to step in and do something about it.
8 months ago, on October 7th, when this conflict started, we saw the majority, overwhelming majority of Western nations declaring their staunch support for Israel. Slowly, we've seen this tide shift, whether it is on the government level or whether it's on a public level. Now we're actually seeing 3 European countries come out. I'm wondering if you could sort of maybe look another 8 months into the future. Where do you think we'll be standing?
Well, I mean, we have to recognize what happened in 8 months. I mean, at the beginning, people were looking sympathetically to what happened on October the 7th with regard to Israel and what happened to it. But slowly they recognized that Israel is not about to defend itself. Israel was conducting ethnic cleansing systematically. Over 50,000 people have either been killed or missing. 80,000 probably have been injured at least. And we're talking about Gaza being unlivable today. All universities, most schools, 200,000 residents, all hospitals, clinics, and so on and so forth have been demolished. So it's clear what Israel is trying to do is to induce a demographic transition with ethnic cleansing. They wanted to solve their demographic problem along with Hamas problem by driving Palestinians out of Gaza, and this is unacceptable in today's day and age, and therefore this is which is the result. Now, if this continues, certainly there will be more European countries and more nations around the world coming to this conclusion that what we're having here is a genocidal regime that cannot be allowed to conduct its business by totally eradicating a group of people, which is the classic definition of ethnic cleansing and genocide.
Sami, I want to come back to you and I want to get sort of the Israeli side in just a moment, but let's right now cross over to Occupy